this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this adorable split applique zipper bag. This is the 5x7 size, and I also want to note two things. Number one, the steps of this video will suffice for any split applique zipper bag that I make at designsbylittlebee.com. It could have any applique element on the front, maybe a baseball, a monogram circle, a gingerbread man, whatever it is, the steps are the exact same. The only difference is the details in the applique element of your bag, which you can find in the PDF step list that's included in your file. And another thing I want to mention is that certain small details of this bag may change as my digitizing evolves in the future, but in general, the steps are the exact same. So you can always follow the steps in this video to make your own split applique zipper bag. So let's gather the materials that you need based on the PDF instructions that were included in your file, and let's go to our machine. I'm using my Easy Frames by Durkee, so I have my stabilizer clipped onto my frame using binder clips. I'm also using my favorite black cutaway stabilizer. The first step, as usual, is going to be to run the placement for your whole bag. Then you're going to grab your zipper and place it between these railroad track lines and pin or tape out of the stitch path. It's going to stitch on both sides of the zipper to your liking, and make sure that the zipper pull is going the orientation that you want it to go. I like mine to go from left to right when the bag is flat, so that's the way that I put my zipper. My zipper is now tacked down, and I have removed my hoop or my frame from my machine. I'm now going to flip it over. This is the part that may seem complicated or difficult. It's really not. Excuse me while I get this stabilizer out of the way. I like to use a full length of stabilizer. I have this big giant stabilizer roll. So I like to cut it off at the end and save that for a future project. So what you're going to do now, you're going to take your inside lining fabric. Mine is this green holly leaf. It's got a right side and a wrong side. I want you to look at your zipper. And do you see this placement line? This is where you saw the railroad track to place your zipper, this one at the bottom. You're going to take your lining fabric, put it right here. This is where it's going to end up. But for right now, you're going to flip it over that zipper placement line right there. It should really kind of just meet it or just cover that placement line, right side down. Okay? You want to pin this. If you pin it, be sure to pin it from the front to make sure that you don't have any sharp pokies near the bed of your machine. And then replace your hoop and come back. Okay, my frame is replaced, and you can see that underneath my frame I have my lining fabric that I just pinned down. Now you're going to take the fabric for the front top of your split bag. Okay, the split applique bag has a piece of fabric here and a piece of fabric here, and then a cute little design right there. So I'm going to take my front top piece of fabric, that's the same green that I used for the lining, and I'm going to do the same thing I did underneath my hoop. I'm going to flip it and line it up with the bottom of that zipper or the zipper placement right there, and I'm going to pin this down as well. And then I'm going to stitch the next step, which will tack both of these fabrics down, the front and the lining. All right, I did use a coordinating green, but you can still see that tack down line. You may want to check underneath your hoop at this point to make sure that the lining's stitched correctly and there's no wrinkles or folds. And next, we're going to grab our front piece of fabric and we're going to flip it over that tack down stitch, okay? And the next step is going to tack this piece of fabric down and prepare us for the bottom accent piece and the little applique. Okay, the next step in your instructions is to trim underneath this tack down line that you just stitched. I want to remind you in this video not to trim the sides. It is not an applique, so you're not trimming for like a satin stitch. You want to leave that so that you have your excess fabric for when you turn it inside out. So just trim along the bottom of this placement line that you just, or tack down line that you just stitched, and it does not have to be right up to the stitching because this is not an applique. It's not going to satin stitch it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do a nice general trim around that, underneath that tack down stitch. You can see here that I just roughly trimmed around the bottom of that tack down line. Now you're going to grab your fabric for the bottom of the bag, the accent piece below your little applique design, whatever that might be. And I'm going to use this side because it's more straight. It's trimmed more neatly. So you're going to place it right here. Here's where it's going to end up. But for now, we're going to flip it just like we did the first piece over the zipper. And we're going to cover that tack down line that you just stitched. See that straight line? I'm going to cover that by maybe like 1/3 of an inch or so. Okay, not a lot, but this is going to be tacked down right here, and then you're going to flip this one too. So you want to pin this down and stitch the tack down for this, which I believe will go around the shape of your applique, but I can't remember, but it tacks down this accent piece for the bottom of your bag. Okay, now you see your tack down line right here. Now you're going to flip that one over, and you're going to pin this down. And for the tack down for this, since it is going to show on top of this fabric, you do want to use a coordinating color. I'm going to switch mine from what I had in my machine, which was green. I'm going to switch mine to the light brown that I'm going to use for my gingerbread man. So you want to use a coordinating or contrasting, just a complementary color. All right, now you can see with my coordinating brown for the gingerbread man, I have stitched the tack down. And it also stitched the outline. This is the placement for your applique. Now, depending on your personal preference, you can trim around the inside of this. For certain versions of this bag, like maybe the baseball, where the subject is white, you may want to trim this out so that you don't have fabric showing through the white. I'm actually using a velvety brown that is very thick for this particular bag. So what I'm going to do is, because this has a little bit of a hump in it, because this is folded over, I'm going to trim out the bottom of my gingerbread man just so there's not that lump in it, but I'm not going to trim the green. I just don't feel a need to because I'm using this thick fabric on the top. It's not going to show through. I don't think it adds a crazy amount of bulk. So this is just really your personal preference and your decision on whether you want to trim the inside of this before you place your fabric for the applique object. Now, after you prepare it the way that you'd like, you want to place your fabric over the placement for your applique element. And then you're going to pin or tape that down if you'd like and stitch the tack down for that applique element. Now you can see that my applique element is tacked down. This could be anything. All of them stitch out in the same fashion. The only difference is what that element is. Could be a happy face or a sports ball, or this one is a gingerbread man. So you're going to treat this just like a straightforward applique. You're going to trim around neatly this tack down stitch, and then you're going to run the satin to satin that out, and any details that go inside the applique element, which you can find in the step list for your zipper bag. See that your applique element is finished. So what you're going to do, this is very important, you're going to grab your zipper pull and pull it towards the middle of your design so that you do not stitch the zipper pull out of your project. Okay? Also at this point, you're going to remove your hoop. Oh, also, I meant to say, stitch any personalization you may have added. If you added like a little monogram or a name right here or anything that you added to your project, you stitch that now before moving on, okay? Then, if you didn't add anything, or if you're done stitching what you added for personalization, remove your hoop again. We're going to take it over to our flat surface, and I'm going to grab, it already fell naturally, but my lining piece was right here. I'm going to grab it and flip it over all the stitches so far, flip it over that tack down line that we did a long time ago. And I'm going to pin that down, preferably from the front so you don't have any sharp pokies at the bed of your machine. And then I'm going to replace my hoop, make sure the zipper pull is moved down, and then we'll move on. My hoop is replaced, my lining fabric is in place, and I have checked underneath my hoop to make sure that it didn't fold or wrinkle when I replaced my hoop. And my zipper pull is pulled in. So now I'm going to stitch the placement for my little ribbon or elastic loop to go at the side of my bag. If you don't know where it's going to stitch or you can't see it on your screen, I can see mine right there, so I know that it's going to stitch right here. But there is a placement as well as a tack down, so if you can't see it well on your machine or you just need that extra reassurance, you can stitch that placement. Mine's going to go right here. You're going to fold your piece of elastic or ribbon or whatever you're using in half, and you're going to place the folded edge towards the inside of your bag. Okay, it's like a popple from the 80s. You're gonna, when you flip your bag inside out, this is gonna pop out. Okay, so you want to pin or tape that. I like to tape it because it just needs to be there for a second. And make sure that you are underneath your zipper. Okay, if you go over your zipper, it's gonna be in a weird place. So I like to put mine right underneath the zipper. I'm going to tape that down with my other hand because this is very hard to do one-handed. And then I'm going to stitch the tack down for that little piece of elastic, and then I'll come back. We're coming to the end of our machine steps for our zipper bag. I happen to be using the same print for the back of my bag as well as the back lining. So if you are using different prints, then you need to pay attention to which one I'm telling you to put on your hoop now. This is going to be the back fabric of your bag. That's if you're holding your bag and you flip it over, that's what it is. So here's the right side of my back fabric. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to place it right side down to cover my entire project. You can see that I have a lot left over. I was being very generous with my cutting. So I'm going to place it to cover my entire project so far, and then you run a step that will go all the way around this and then come back. Here you can see that my backing fabric, the back of my bag, is stitched all the way around with that coordinating green thread. I have removed my hoop. I'm going to flip it over. Make sure at this step that everything is in place. This lining piece is beautifully stitched down. There's no folds or wrinkles. And now we're going to take the back lining piece and we're going to, again, cover the entire project so far. Again, I was very generous with my cuts. I'm going to place it a little strategically so that I have leftovers for scraps. So you're going to place that to cover the entire project so far, your entire square or rectangle. And pin that down. I like to pin from the front. And then place this on place your hoop on your machine and stitch the final step, which will go almost all the way around your bag. And then the actual final machine step is just a kind of a dummy stitch so that our friends with single needle machines, so their machine doesn't come back to the center of the project at the end and possibly pull on the zipper pull. So the last step is just a little line. It's kind of a dummy line. You don't have to stitch that, but it's not the end of the world if you accidentally do. The machine work is now done, and now I come to perhaps the most important step in any in the hoop embroidery design, and that is removing your hoop and checking the front and the back of your project to make sure that everything's stitched out properly and you don't have any folds or wrinkles in your fabric, anything you can fix while the project is still in the hoop, because as we know, once you unhoop it, it is done. So mine looks great. I'm going to remove my project from my easy frame and I'm going to take it over to my cutting surface. Now I've got my project over at my cutting surface and I can see the front and the back. I used the same print for my front and for the back lining of my bag. You want to find the side of your project that has a space that was left and unstitched for turning. Now on this bag, it is at the bottom if oriented horizontally like this. On some zipper bags, it may be on the side. So it doesn't matter where it is. Just find that hole, that space for turning that did not get stitched. You can see right here, look, it's just a couple of inches wide. You're going to trim around your project, leaving approximately, I would say, 1/3 of an inch seam allowance, maybe. Make sure to be careful not to cut into the stitches of your bag. So now I ended up with this big piece of stabilizer for use in the future. I also keep my zipper pulls like this, or my zipper tape that's left over. This was a big scrap, and you can use this for future zippers. You can buy zipper pulls that you can use with leftover zipper tape, or you can use these for like the loop on the side of your bag. I think it makes a cute little accent on the side of the bag. You can just use them for various things. I am a scrap keeper. If it makes sense in any way, I keep it. So putting those aside, I'm going to keep cutting. And when you get to this space that was left for turning, that was unstitched, you're going to leave a tab, okay? Like maybe half an inch or 2/3 of an inch of a tab for turning your project, because you need that to seal up your bag, whether you hand stitch or I use peel and stick fabric fuse permanent double-sided fabric tape. That was a mouthful. Looks like this. So you see your project here. You've got that space, that tab left. I am going to find that one open layer that is not stitched together. There it is. And I'm going to turn my bag inside out carefully, like patiently, but also you want all the corners out. The way I like to do it is, I do have small hands. I like to put one finger inside and find a corner like this. And then I pinch with my thumb at that corner and I push it to the ends, to the, through that hole to turn it like this. You got to be patient, but also get it done. You don't want to rip the seams at that turning hole. I try to give you enough space to turn without making it a giant space to close up later. Make sure your corners are pushed out nicely. You can use a pin like with a cap on it or a chopstick if you'd like to gently push, gently but firmly push those corners out. Now when I'm done turning my bag inside out, here I go with the last corner. When I'm done turning my bag inside out, I like to take it over to my pressing surface and give it a nice press so that it's nice and flat right now before we move on. My bag is now pressed, and now we need to get this stabilizer out from behind our zipper. So if you used cutaway, which I almost never do, if you use tearaway, which I almost never do, you can tear that away. If you used cutaway, you need to very gently, and actually mine has a little hole right there for some reason, so I'm going to go ahead and use that as my, I don't know where that came from, but I'm going to use that as my in to make a little trim. And you need to very gently and carefully trim away the stabilizer from all sides behind the zipper. And be very careful, because if you're too forceful, you can poke your scissors through your zipper. Ask me how I know. So this is one of the things that I take the most time on, because I do not want to mess up my completed bag. So take your time, get that stabilizer out from behind your zipper, and then come back. I now have the stabilizer neatly trimmed away, and you can see the back of the zipper. And now it's time to close up that turning hole. So you left yourself a nice little tab. This is where pressing comes in handy, because you want these edges flat so that you can seal it up in a quality fashion. So you can hand stitch it. I consider hand stitching to be a form of torture. So I use peel and stick fabric fuse, which I will try to remember to link in the description to this video. You take a length of it and you get the sticky part off your fingers. So a little hitchhiker has come along. So I reach into my bag. I find a tab on one side and I place my sticky permanent fabric tape right up on the edge, the flat edge there. And then I smush it down really well, okay? It needs to be really smushed down. Then I push both of my tabs inside, so this is nice and flat on the edge. Then I carefully reach inside and pull the backing, the paper, off the back of that tape. And if it doesn't come off easily, you might need to smush it some more, okay? It has to be really attached to the fabric, and then the paper will come off easily. Mine just came off really easily. I very carefully, using my fingers and that tape, I smush, pull my fingers out, and then I smush that together. This is now sealed. And I have a little bit of little tails of thread. I'm going to go ahead and cut those. This will be the inside of your bag. So this doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. It's not going to be visible to the naked eye once your bag is turned right side out, but it does need to be, you know, good. Then you're going to reach inside your bag, find the zipper pull, and gently push it open. And then you turn your bag right side out. This is the final turn. Make sure to get those corners out. Ta-da! And then you can start to see your bag pop out. I'm going to finish turning this inside out and take it over to my pressing surface. Be careful if you used vinyl for that applique piece. That is a very cute accent. However, your vinyl, like marine vinyl, sometimes, usually, always, I don't know, doesn't like an iron. So don't press directly onto vinyl if you used vinyl. I didn't, but that's just a little tip I learned long ago. So now you can see your bag. You see the little ribbon elastic part turned right side out, and there's your finished project. I hope this took some of the intimidation out of making this project. As you can see, it's super easy. I will see you in the next video, and I'll chat with you in the group. Bye.